They say your own blood can betray you, but what if it's the one you welcomed into your home like your own daughter? What if the person you cooked for, prayed for, and trusted with your son's happiness turns out to be the reason you cry in silence every night? I never thought my daughter-in-law, the same woman I gave jewelry on her wedding day, would try to throw me out of my own house. And not just once, but again and again, through lies, manipulations, and cruelty. This is my story. And if you've ever trusted someone who made you regret it, I ask you to stay with me till the end. Don't forget to like this video, share it if it touches you, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like mine. Also, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below, and if you've ever gone through something similar, I'm reading all your stories. When Aurora first walked into our home as my son Nathan's new bride, she wore the gentlest smile. You'd never guess what lay beneath it. I still remember the way she touched my feet, soft hands, soft words, and even softer promises. She called me Mom, and I believed she meant it. At first, everything felt peaceful. We cooked together. I showed her the recipes my mother taught me: beef stew with rosemary, cinnamon apple pie, and Sunday pot roast. She laughed, nodded, and said, "I want to be just like you, Mom." I believed her. But lies don't stay buried for long. Within the first 2 months, I noticed little things changing. She began whispering to Nathan, always looking over her shoulder when I entered the room. She once asked, casually, "Why don't you just transfer the house to Nathan's name? You're getting older, and managing property is stressful, isn't it?" I laughed, brushing it off. But the seed had been planted. She started locking the office room where I kept important documents. When I confronted her, she said it was to keep the baby safe, though we had no baby, not even a plan for one. I didn't question it much then, but something about her eyes that day chilled me. A fake concern coded in sweet words. One night, I overheard her on the phone. "Once the deed is in his name, the rest is easy." My blood froze. I didn't confront her, not yet. I had to be smart. I had to be strong. Because I knew if I did, she'd turn Nathan against me. And I wasn't ready to lose my son. But oh, viewers, I had no idea what more she was capable of. It happened on a Thursday. A cold, overcast morning where even the coffee didn't taste right. I was coming back from my walk when I reached for my bedroom door, and the handle wouldn't turn. I thought perhaps it jammed. But when I pushed harder, I heard it. The unmistakable click of a lock from the inside. I called out gently, "Nathan? Aurora? Is something wrong?" No answer. I waited. Knocked again. After a full 5 minutes, Aurora opened the door just enough to slip out, then shut it behind her with a tight, sheepish smile. "Oh, sorry, Mom. I was just reorganizing some things. You wouldn't want to trip over your old rugs, right?" I stared at her, confused. In my room, she leaned in close and whispered, "Our room now." I laughed because what else could I do? But my hands trembled. Inside, I noticed my family photos were missing. My jewelry box was gone. Even my birth certificate was nowhere to be found. I confronted Nathan later that evening, but he shrugged it off. "Aurora's just trying to help, Mom. You do forget things sometimes." Forget? I hadn't forgotten anything, but they were planting the idea, weren't they? That night, I couldn't sleep. Not in that house. Not under the same roof as someone who wanted to erase me room by room. But I stayed silent for now, because I needed to know how far she'd go. And soon, I'd find out. A week later, the twist I'd feared most came true. I received a call from Mr. Barkley, the old family attorney. His voice was grave. "Mrs. Bennett, I just wanted to confirm the recent amendments to your will. I assumed Nathan had your blessing." I froze. "What amendments?" "The deed to the house and the vacation cabin in Vermont. Transferred to Nathan and Aurora. You signed it last Friday." I dropped the phone. Viewers, I swear to you, I never signed anything. I went straight to the lawyer's office, shaking, and demanded to see the documents. And there it was. My signature, copied perfectly. Too perfectly. I had been betrayed by someone under my roof, eating my food, sleeping in the bed I paid for. I confronted Aurora that evening with the paper in my hand. She didn't blink. "Oh, Mom, you're confused again. Don't stress yourself. Nathan said you wanted to make things easier for us." She turned it around. Again. "And Nathan? He didn't even look up from his phone." I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because the story wasn't over yet. No, I had more chapters left. And viewers, the moment I took my power back is coming soon. But first, she'd try something even darker. I never imagined a day would come when my own daughter-in-law would try to label me mentally unstable just to claim a house. But that day came, and it shattered every last bit of trust one had left. It was late, past midnight. I was in the kitchen boiling water for tea. My nerves had been fragile since the Forged Will incident. Every sound in the house put me on edge. Every shadow looked like betrayal. I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Aurora. Oh God. She's up again. Talking to herself, she whispered into her phone loud enough for me to hear. I turned. "What are you saying, Aurora?" She flinched. "Mom, it's okay. Just sit down. You're not well. It's okay to admit that." I felt my chest tighten. "I'm fine." That's when I noticed the ambulance lights flash through the curtains. My blood ran cold. 2 EMTs entered the house with soft, patronizing voices. "Ma'am, we got a call. Someone said you were confused, possibly a danger to yourself." A danger? I was making tea. Nathan came down the stairs half awake and sighed. "Mom, just go with them. They'll make sure you're all right." I looked into my son's eyes and saw nothing. Not concern. Not love. Just exhaustion. Like I was some burden to be handled. Viewers, imagine standing in your kitchen, in your own home, and strangers coming in to carry you away while your son watches in silence. I had 2 choices that night. Go with them quietly. Or fight. So I fought. I demanded they speak to my personal doctor, told them about my clear medical records, and when they hesitated, I mentioned I'd be contacting my lawyer. They left. Eventually. But the damage had been done. Aurora stood at the stairs, smiling faintly. Just trying to help Mom. I locked my door that night. Not out of fear, but out of fury. And that's when I began planning. Because next time, she'd be the one answering questions. After that night, after the ambulance humiliation, I knew I couldn't just sit around waiting for Aurora to strike again. She had crossed a line. And now it was time I drew mine. The very next day, I walked into town, carrying nothing but my handbag and silence. I didn't even tell Nathan where I was going. He didn't care to ask anymore. That told me enough. I went to a local electronics store and bought something Aurora never imagined I'd understand: mini surveillance cameras. Discreet, wireless, motion-sensitive, and more powerful than any scream or accusation I could ever make. I hid them in the corners of the living room, in the hallway near my bedroom, and most importantly, above the locked drawer she kept rummaging through in my study. If she was bold enough to forge documents, she'd be bold enough to try more. And I was right. Just 3 nights later, while they assumed I was sleeping, I caught her red-handed. On camera. Digging through my cabinet, flipping through my medical files, and even stuffing some papers into her purse. I replayed the footage at least a dozen times, heart thudding. I had proof now. Real, undeniable proof. But I didn't show it to Nathan. Not yet. Because viewers, I had learned something important from watching her. Timing is everything. Instead, I backed off. Played calm. Polite. Even thanked her for the tea one morning, just to see the flicker of confusion in her eyes. That's when I knew she was growing careless. Confident. And soon, she'd slip. Because what Aurora did next nearly broke me. But it also became the moment I decided no more mercy. They say your home is your fortress. But what happens when someone tries to sell your fortress while you're still living in it? Viewers, I wish I was exaggerating. I truly do. It was a calm Friday morning. I had just watered the roses in the front garden, roses I had planted with Nathan when he was a child, back when he used to run barefoot in the yard and beg me to let him dig in the soil. That garden was the last piece of my peace, the last piece of me. Then a white car pulled into the driveway. A woman stepped out in heels, holding a clipboard and a set of keys. She looked surprised to see me. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, scanning her documents. "I wasn't expecting anyone home. I scheduled a walkthrough." "A walkthrough of what?" "The property." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I think there's a mistake," I told her firmly. "This house is not for sale." She frowned, checked the address again, and said, "I was told it was listed under your son's name, Nathan Bennett." "A young woman named Aurora handled the paperwork. She said you were moving into assisted living and they needed a quick sell." I could barely stand. The air felt like it had turned to cement. I asked the agent to leave immediately, went back inside, locked the doors, and sat in my bedroom for over an hour, trying not to collapse under the weight of betrayal. My hands were shaking as I opened the folder where I kept the original house deed, my name, in black ink, right at the top. Untouched. Unchanged. Thank God. But now I understood the full depth of her lies. Aurora wasn't just scheming anymore. She was erasing me, piece by piece. To her, I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle. A locked door between her and the future she wanted. That evening, I confronted her. "Who gave you permission to list this house for sale?" She looked at me coolly, almost with boredom. "You've had so many episodes lately, Mom. I thought maybe it was time." And Nathan agrees. "We just want what's best for you." I turned to Nathan. "Is that true?" He didn't even meet my eyes. He just said, "We can't keep doing this every day, Mom. You're tired. You need help." The ache in my chest wasn't from heartbreak anymore. It was rage. How dare they? How dare she? I realized then that I had protected my son too long. I had always assumed he was just being manipulated, but in that moment, I saw something darker. He had chosen comfort over conscience. And that meant I was alone now. But not weak. I looked them both in the eye and said calmly, "If either of you tries to touch my house again, I will burn every bridge between us." That night, I moved the camera footage to a secure drive. I contacted a second lawyer, not the family one anymore. A woman named Eliza Graves, known for her ruthless defense of elder clients. If Aurora wanted war, she was going to get it. And I wasn't going to lose. Viewers, I'm telling you this from a place of truth. Because next, she did something so cruel, so inhuman, that even I, after all the betrayal, never saw it coming. I never wanted to believe that someone who once called me mom could try to kill me in slow motion. But that's what it felt like. After the failed house sale, Aurora became quieter, more calculating. She didn't scream, didn't accuse. She smiled more. She made me tea in the evenings. She even started calling me mama again, like she used to in the beginning. But it wasn't kindness. It was strategy. And I realized it the day I collapsed in the living room, gasping for breath, my vision going blurry, my fingers tingling. You see, viewers, I'm diabetic. I take 2 daily medications, one for my blood sugar and another for my blood pressure. I've taken them religiously for years. They keep me alive. That morning, I'd gone to the pharmacy to collect my refill. But the clerk shook his head. "Sorry, Mrs. Bennett. These were canceled last week. Your family caregiver said you were transitioning to full care under their supervision." I blinked. Family caregiver? Aurora Bennett. It felt like ice ran down my spine. I rushed home. I stormed into the kitchen and confronted her, every ounce of fear turning into fury. "You canceled my medicine?" She didn't deny it. She just stirred her coffee calmly and said, "You've been forgetting to take them." "I was just looking out for you. Thought it was time to take over." "You do not touch my healthcare." "Why not?" She smiled. "You're not getting any younger." I slapped the table so hard, the china rattled. "You tried to sell my house. You forged my signature. Now you're trying to control my medication." That's when Nathan walked in and, like always, acted as if I was the problem. "Mom, calm down. We're all under stress. Aurora's trying to help." "No, Nathan. She's trying to replace me." And he just stood there, silent, as if I was screaming into the void. Because I know how lonely it feels. After Nathan left, Aurora leaned in close and whispered, "You're not winning this, Mama. You're just buying time." That night, I locked my bedroom door, held the pill bottles in my hand, and cried until dawn. But in those tears, something hardened in me. I realized I had to stop reacting and start preparing. She wanted me gone? Fine. But she had no idea I'd already started rewriting my will. She had no idea I was collecting evidence. She had no idea I had one final move left that would make everything she'd done come crashing down on her head. And when I made that move, there'd be no coming back. Sometimes, the best way to win a war is to disappear from the battlefield. Viewers, after everything Aurora did, after the fake will, the ambulance stunt, the house listing, and canceling my life-sustaining medication, I realized I had only two choices left. Either I keep defending myself until there's nothing left of me, or I vanish and let her panic in the silence. So that's what I did. One Sunday morning, I packed a single suitcase. Just the essentials: my identification, documents, my medications, flash drives with all the hidden camera footage, and the original deed to the house. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't write a note. I simply walked out while they were still asleep. I didn't go far, just to a quiet rented apartment in a neighboring town under a different name. My lawyer, Eliza Graves, helped me arrange it. She said it was time to fight smart, not loud. Within hours of my disappearance, my phone started blowing up. 20 missed calls, all from Nathan. 15 from Aurora. A few texts dripped with panic. "Mom, where are you? We're worried. Please come back. We're calling the police if you don't respond." But not once did they say they were sorry. Not once did they say they were wrong. They were worried because their plan was falling apart. And I let them panic. For 2 weeks, I lived in peace. The first true peace I'd felt in months. I watched movies, read books, and collected my thoughts. I also met with Eliza twice a week, preparing the legal storm that would soon rain down on my dear daughter-in-law. But I also cried, because as much as I was finally breathing again, I missed the illusion of family. I missed the boy Nathan used to be before she filled his ears with poison. I missed being called Mom and believing it wasn't a weapon. The twist? When I finally returned 3 weeks later, I didn't come back alone. I came back with a sheriff, a lawyer, and eviction papers. Because what Aurora didn't know was this: I had never transferred the property title. The fake documents she filed meant nothing without my real signature, and my lawyer made sure of that. And what she had done in my absence made everything worse. She had thrown out my personal belongings. She had moved her sister into my bedroom. She had even planned a housewarming party, calling it the beginning of their freedom. But freedom comes with a price. And now, they were going to pay it. Viewers, when I stepped back into that house after 3 long weeks, I nearly didn't recognize it. Gone were the family portraits, the lace curtains I'd sewn myself. My antique table was replaced by a gaudy glass one, and there were wine glasses set out like it was some chic cocktail lounge. My home had been transformed, not into something new, but into something cold. Something hers. Aurora was laughing when I walked in. Yes, laughing. She had no idea I was coming. She stood there in the living room, swirling a glass of red wine, her sister lounging across my old couch in a silk robe, like she owned the place. That laughter stopped the moment she saw the sheriff behind me, and my lawyer, and the brown envelope in my hand. What's going on?" she asked, still trying to control the situation, still wearing that plastic smile. I handed her the envelope. Calmly, quietly. "You have 48 hours to vacate this property. Her eyes darted to Nathan, who was just walking in from the backyard, barefoot, confused. "What's happening?" I turned to him, my son, my blood, and said the words I'd never thought I'd have to say. "You can stay here if you want, Nathan. But she's leaving. And if you side with her again, you're leaving too." "You can't do this," Aurora snapped. "You abandoned your own home." "No, I protected it," I replied. "I have video evidence of you forging my name, going through my medical files, canceling my prescriptions, and lying to a real estate agent about my mental health." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. My lawyer stepped forward. "If you don't comply within 48 hours, we'll file for felony fraud, elder abuse, and illegal possession of property. This is a formal warning, Mrs. Aurora Bennett. You've gone too far." She stammered. "Nathan, say something." But Nathan was silent. For once, truly speechless. I looked him in the eye. "I gave you everything, son. And you gave me silence." Viewers, I cannot explain the mix of heartbreak and pride I felt in that moment. To defend myself, even against my own child, it tore me apart. But I had to, because if I didn't draw the line, she would have buried me under the very floors I scrubbed for 30 years. I walked past them both and sat down in my favorite chair. The house smelled wrong. It looked wrong. But now, it was mine again. She screamed, cried, called me names, tried to convince Nathan to argue. But I had said all I needed to say. The clock was ticking. 48 hours. And, for the first time in months, I was the one in control. Aurora wasn't done scheming yet. She had one last desperate move to make. And I was ready for it. Viewers, just when I thought I had seen every trick in Aurora's poisonous playbook, she played the lowest card of all. A fake pregnancy. Yes, you heard me right. The same woman who forged my signature, canceled my medication, and tried to sell my house behind my back, suddenly announced that she was expecting. And she used that lie as a shield, a last-ditch attempt to buy sympathy and stall her eviction. It was the morning after she was served. I was in the kitchen, my kitchen, finally able to breathe in the familiar scent of roasted coffee and fresh air without feeling like a stranger in my own home. That's when Aurora came downstairs, dramatically clutching her stomach, her face pale, eyes wide with mock innocence. "Nathan, I'm late. I think I might be pregnant." He jumped up. "What? Are you sure?" She nodded tearfully. "I was going to wait until after everything settled, but I didn't want to hide it from Mom." Mom. The way she said it made my skin crawl. Nathan looked at me, searching for some reaction, some weakness. I gave him none. I just said, "That doesn't change the facts." "But Mom," he pleaded, "what if it's true? You can't throw out the mother of your grandchild." "Oh, suddenly I'm Mom again?" I snapped. "After everything she's done?" I turned to Aurora. "If you're truly pregnant, get tested. Right now. In front of me." And that, viewers, was the moment the mask cracked. Her eyes darted. Her hands fumbled. Her voice trembled. "I can't just go to the doctor like that. It's too early." My lawyer, who had just arrived to finalize the paperwork, didn't even blink. "We can administer a blood test through a private clinic today. If you're pregnant, the results will confirm it." Aurora stammered again. "That's not necessary. I need rest. Stress isn't good for the baby." I stood up. My voice was cold now. Tired. Firm. "Then you have 24 hours. Not 48. That's when she broke. She fell to her knees, screaming, "You're ruining my life. You want to destroy me. You never accepted me." But viewers, let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Abusers love to play the victim when they're caught. And I wasn't falling for it anymore. I looked down at her, this woman who had tried to take everything from me, and I felt nothing. Not anger. Not even pity. Just closure. Nathan didn't say a word. He didn't try to stop me. He looked at Aurora, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. I didn't gloat. I didn't scream. I just walked past them and closed my bedroom door. Because the storm was almost over. And soon, so was Aurora's time in this house. Because in the next chapter, she packs her bags. But not without one last confrontation. Viewers, when someone hurts you for months, tears you down, strips away your dignity, makes you feel like a ghost inside your own home, there comes a moment where they'll finally say sorry. But sometimes, that apology means nothing. Aurora stood in the doorway that morning, her suitcase clutched in one hand, tears dripping down her cheeks. She looked small, not like the storm she once was. Just a tired, broken woman clinging to a lie that had finally collapsed. Nathan stood behind her, arms crossed, face unreadable. "I just want to say I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Didn't mean? Didn't mean to forge legal documents? Didn't mean to cancel life-saving medications? Didn't mean to fake a pregnancy?" I stared at her for a long moment. And then I said something I never thought I'd say out loud, not even to myself. You never wanted a mother-in-law. You wanted a landlord to die quietly so you could inherit her house. She blinked, stunned. Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "You smiled in my face," I continued. "You called me mom while you stole behind my back. You humiliated me, manipulated my own son against me, and tried to erase me from my own life. And now that everything's crumbling, now you want forgiveness." She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. "I'm not saying this out of spite. I'm saying this so I never have to repeat it again. You will leave this house today. You will not contact me. And if I ever hear of you interfering with another elderly person for property, I will testify against you myself." Tears were pouring down her cheeks now. I didn't think you'd fight back." I leaned closer. "That was your biggest mistake." And then I stepped aside. She picked up her bags and walked out the front door with her head down, not in shame, but in defeat. Real, complete defeat. Nathan hesitated at the door. He didn't follow her. He just looked at me, almost like a boy again. Lost, confused. "Are you going to kick me out too?" "No," I said softly. "But you need to decide who you are. Because silence is no longer an option." He didn't reply. Just walked to his room without a word. Viewers, I know many of you are hurting. Some of you have gone through something similar. Maybe you didn't have the words back then. Maybe you were too scared to speak. But if you're hearing this now, please take this chapter as your sign. You have the right to protect yourself, to reclaim your voice, to say enough. Let me know in the comments if you've ever said those words. Just right. I said enough. I'll read each one. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because you never know who else needs this message right now. But the story doesn't end here, because the real regret was still coming. They say people don't realize what they had until it's gone. For Aurora, it hit her like a falling brick wall. But by the time she returned, the door was no longer open. It had been nearly 3 weeks since she left. The house was quiet again. Peaceful. I had started putting things back where they belonged, my old curtains, the tablecloth Nathan made in school, the photos she had tried to erase from the walls. I even baked again. Cherry pie. My late husband's favorite. It felt like my soul was healing, thread by thread. Then one morning, the bell rang. I opened the door, and there she was. Aurora. Alone. Disheveled. Makeup smeared. Eyes hollow red. Nothing like the polished puppet master who once strutted through my home. "Please," she whispered. "Can I come in?" I didn't say anything. She clutched her arms like she was cold. Nathan. He left me. I felt nothing. Not pity. Not even anger anymore. She continued. He found out about the second bank account. The one I was hiding. He left without a word. I lost everything. I'm staying in a motel now. I've been eating crackers and soda for 3 days. Still, I said nothing. Tears streamed down her face. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I was scared. I wanted security. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know I was wrong. I know I was cruel. Please. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. She reached for my hand. and I gently pulled it away. Aurora, I said calmly, this house is a place of peace now. A place of healing. And there's no room for your chaos anymore. I'm not asking for a place to stay, she cried. I need you to know I'm not that person anymore. No, I said with a firm, quiet voice. You are. You just don't have power anymore. She fell to her knees. Please, I have nothing. I'm so ashamed. I can't even look in the mirror. I stepped back. You should have thought about that when I was lying on the floor without medication. When you were smiling as you erased me. You don't get to undo it all with tears. She sobbed into her palms, right there on my porch. And for a second, I did feel a twinge of sorrow. Not for her, but for the brokenness in women like her who confuse cruelty for control. I hope you become a better person, I said. But it won't be in my home. And I closed the door. Not in anger, but in peace. Viewers, if someone has hurt you and then returned with hollow words, you don't owe them anything. Not a second chance. Not a place at your table. Not even your time. Sometimes, self-respect is the closure. Let me know if you've ever had to shut a door like that. Just type, I closed the door. And please like and share this video so others can find the strength to do the same. Subscribe for more stories like this. We tell the truth that others are too afraid to, and the story still isn't over. Because what came next was the most surprising part of all. Viewers, when someone you love stays silent during your suffering, that silence becomes the sharpest blade. And Nathan, my son, had been cutting me quietly for months, but something in him had changed since Aurora left. He walked more slowly now. Sat outside by himself for hours. I heard him crying once, late at night, in the backyard. I didn't go to him. I wasn't ready to open that door. Not yet. Then one afternoon, as I was folding laundry by the window, he came and sat across from me. His eyes were tired, his face thinner, like guilt had carved lines where time hadn't. I need to talk, he said. I kept folding. I let you down. I paused. I knew, he continued. I knew what she was doing. Maybe not all of it, but I knew enough. The way she talked about you, the things she said behind your back. He stopped himself, choking on the words. I didn't stop her. I let her treat you like a problem, like an old woman taking up space. I was scared, weak, and selfish. I kept thinking if I ignored it long enough, it would go away. I turned to him slowly. My hands were trembling, but I kept my voice steady. You watched her try to erase me, Nathan. Not once did you stand between us. Do you know what that did to me? Tears filled his eyes. I do now. Every time I walk past your door, I remember the night you screamed at me to see what was happening, and I looked away. There was silence. Then he reached into his pocket and placed something on the table. A folded letter. It's everything I should have said months ago, he whispered. If you ever want to read it, it's there. He stood to leave, but I stopped him. Nathan. He looked back, ashamed. I lost faith in you, I said, but I never stopped loving you. That was the hardest part. He fell to his knees, sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mom. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I held him, not to erase the past, not to make things perfect again, but because he finally saw me. They finally saw me. I'll be reading every story with care. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because these stories aren't just mine. They're ours. But viewers, just when I thought the storm had passed, a letter arrived. Not from Aurora, from her mother. And the past wasn't done knocking on my door yet. Viewers, I truly believed the worst had passed, that I could finally breathe, that healing could begin. But then came the letter. No return address. Just my name, written in tidy, unfamiliar script. I opened it at the kitchen table, sunlight warming the wood under my elbows, almost like life was apologizing for what was about to hit me next. Inside was a handwritten note. And the signature? Margot Whitfield. Aurora's mother. I hadn't seen her since the wedding. She had barely spoken to me that day, just gave a thin-lipped smile and a cold nod. Now, after months of silence, she was writing to me like an old friend. Mrs. Bennet, I'm deeply sorry for what my daughter has put you through. But I must tell you something, because she won't. She learned all of this from me. The lies, the manipulation, the charm, the game of taking what isn't yours, but making others think it's their idea. It didn't come from nowhere. It came from watching me do the same thing to her grandmother. I am not proud, but I am honest. Aurora is not evil. She is damaged. Raised in a home where control was the only language spoken. I tell you this not to excuse her, but to explain her. Because one day, if she ever truly changes, she will come to you again. And when that day comes, please remember she comes from generations of women who were never taught love the right way. I am sorry. Margot Whitfield. I sat there for a long time after reading it. My hands still. My thoughts louder than the silence. I wasn't sure what angered me more, that Aurora was a reflection of her mother, or that the letter stirred a part of me I didn't expect. Compassion. Could it really be that she never stood a chance? Could it be that cruelty was taught to her like a skill, passed down like silverware and wedding gowns? I didn't know what to do with the letter. So I burned it. Not out of hate, but because I finally understood. Understanding doesn't mean forgetting. And compassion doesn't mean reunion. It simply means I no longer carry the weight of wondering why. And with that weight lifted, I was finally ready to live again. Viewers, there's a kind of silence that doesn't hurt anymore. It's the kind that fills your home after the chaos has left. The kind where you can finally hear your own thoughts again, not the echo of someone else's anger. That's the silence I woke up to every day now. And in that stillness, I began reclaiming everything Aurora tried to erase. I retrieved my medical records, reinstated my will, reconnected with old friends I hadn't spoken to in years because of the shame I'd buried myself under. I even brought out my late husband's records and listened to his old jazz tapes while I cooked, like I used to, before the darkness crept in. One morning, I stood at the front gate and looked out over the garden. It was blooming again, lavender, wild roses, marigolds. The same flowers Aurora once told me were too messy. I smiled, because sometimes messy things grow stronger than the ones that are perfectly trimmed. And then, I made a decision. A powerful one. I went to my lawyer and asked to rewrite my will again. This time, I left the house, not to Nathan, not to any family member, but to a women's shelter. A place that takes in elderly women, single mothers, victims of abuse. A place where silence is heard and healing begins. My lawyer looked surprised. Are you sure? I nodded. If I can't take it with me when I'm gone, I want to leave it in the hands of someone who earned peace. I didn't do it to punish Nathan. Or even Aurora. I did it to reclaim my purpose. My value. My voice. And if this story has touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. You never know who needs to hear that survival doesn't mean silence. It means strength. The day the papers were finalized, I sat alone on the porch. The birds were chirping. The wind was soft. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had won. But I wasn't expecting the final knock at my door. And when it came, it wasn't Nathan. It was Aurora. Viewers, I never thought I'd hear her voice again. Not without venom. Not without lies behind her tongue. But that morning, when I opened the door and saw Aurora standing there, her hair undone, her eyes swollen from crying, holding a brown paper bag of groceries like some version of herself I'd never seen, I felt something shift. She didn't speak right away. Just stood there. Then finally, "Hi, Mom." This time, it wasn't a mask. It wasn't a performance. She said it like she meant it. And for a moment, I didn't know what to say. She held up the bag, her voice barely above a whisper. "I brought apple jam. I remember you said it reminded you of your childhood. And cinnamon rolls. I baked them. I wanted to try." I let her in. Not because I forgot what she did, but because I remembered who I am. She sat at the same table where she once mocked my old recipes, where she once whispered schemes to erase me. Now she sat with her hands trembling, her eyes wet, her voice raw. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not because I lost everything. Not because Nathan left. But because I became my mother. And I hated her. And I hated myself." Tears slid down her face. "I hurt you in ways I'll never be able to undo. And you didn't deserve any of it. You were kind. You trusted me. And I used that kindness like a crowbar. I listened. I didn't rush to comfort her. I let her sit with her own words. Then I said, 'You broke something in me. But you didn't kill it.'" She nodded, crying harder. "I just wanted you to see that I'm trying to be better. Even if you never forgive me, I need to be better." We sat in silence. I poured her tea, not out of acceptance, but out of decency. Because viewers, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is sit across from the person who once tried to destroy you and not hate them. Not because they deserve grace, but because you do. I didn't promise her anything, no reunion, no warm welcome, but I let her drink the tea. And when she stood to leave, she placed something on the table, a small locket with my initials etched on it. "I had it made," she whispered, "after I left. I thought if I ever got to sit here again, I'd give you something that said, I knew your name, that I never forgot it." Aurora left quietly. And this time, I didn't cry, because even though the storm was over, I had survived. And the final chapters? They're about me now. Viewers, there comes a day after all the pain, betrayal, and quiet battles when you finally wake up and realize, I am no longer surviving. I am living. That day came for me on a Tuesday. The sun was bright through the curtains, not harsh but warm. The house was still, not empty, not silent, just peaceful. I made breakfast for myself. 2 eggs, toast, coffee with cream. I sat in the chair by the window, the one where I used to watch Nathan play in the yard, and for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't waiting for the next blow. I wasn't listening for footsteps in the hall or whispers behind doors. I was just there, present, alive. That morning, I made a list. Not of chores, not of documents, but of dreams. Small ones, silly to some, but powerful to me. Visit the library again. Join the community knitting circle. Bake a pie and give it to someone who's lonely. Write my story, maybe for others who are too afraid to tell theirs. Because viewers, I realized something I wish someone had told me sooner. Life doesn't end when people betray you. Sometimes it begins there. Later that afternoon, I walked to the park and sat on a bench with my journal. I watched the children play, the dogs chase frisbees, the old man selling candied almonds smile at everyone who passed. And I smiled too, not because everything was perfect, but because I was no longer invisible. I even started telling my story in a small group at the local women's shelter. Not for sympathy, but for strength. Because every time I saw a woman's eyes widen with recognition, every time someone whispered, "Me too," I felt a thread connect us. And I knew I was meant to survive so they could too. Viewers, if you've been waiting for the right time to start living again, this is it. Right now. It doesn't have to be big. Just a walk, a list, a phone call, a moment where you choose yourself. Let me know in the comments, what's one thing you've always wanted to do for you? Just write, "My list starts now." I'll read every one. Next, I'll tell you what happened when Nathan came back, not with excuses, but with something I never expected. Viewers, forgiveness doesn't always come wrapped in words. Sometimes it comes in the form of something small, rusty, forgotten. But when placed in your hand, it says everything you ever needed to hear. It was early evening when Nathan returned. I was in the garden, trimming the rose bushes, my therapy, my peace. I heard his car pull in slowly, cautiously, like he wasn't sure if he belonged anymore. And maybe he wasn't. He walked toward me, a little slower than usual. No arrogance. No excuses. Just a son carrying something tight in his fist. I didn't speak. He didn't expect me to. Instead, he knelt beside me, silently, like a boy again, and opened his palm. There it was. A tiny brass key. Old. Familiar. My heart skipped. Where did you find this? I whispered. I never told you, he said, voice shaking, but the night Aurora changed the locks on your room. I kept the original ones in a box. I didn't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe shame. But I found them again last week and I knew I had to bring it back. I held the key in my hand, my fingers trembling. It was the key to the cedar chest my husband gave me on our 10th anniversary. A chest filled with letters, photos, and memories. I thought it was lost. I thought she had thrown it away. But my son had saved it. Even in his silence, a part of him hadn't given up on me. I'm sorry, Mom, he said softly. I didn't protect you. But I kept this. And I think part of me always hoped you'd forgive me. I looked at him. And I saw the boy who once brought me dandelions and called them flowers. The man who had lost his way, but was finally finding it again. I may not forget, Nathan, I said, voice trembling, but today, I forgive. And for the first time in years, he hugged me. Not out of obligation, but out of love. And please, like, share, and subscribe. These stories are about truth, and yours matters too. But the story isn't quite over, because I still had one final letter to write. And this time, it was for her. Viewers, sometimes healing doesn't mean reconciliation. Sometimes it means saying what needs to be said on paper, not in person. With peace, not pride. That's why I wrote to Aurora. Not to reopen wounds, but to seal them shut. It wasn't easy. I stared at the blank page for over an hour, pen in hand, heart pounding. But eventually, the words came. Not in anger. Not in bitterness. But in truth. Aurora, I don't write this to erase what you've done. I write this because I've already forgiven you, and forgiveness is not something I'll carry in silence. You hurt me. You tried to erase me from my own life. You manipulated my love, my family, and my trust. You nearly cost me my home and my health. But I survived you. And I want you to know something important. You didn't win. You didn't break me. You made me braver. I pray, sincerely, that you find help, healing, and humility. I hope one day you become the kind of woman who can walk into a room and offer peace, not fear. The kind of woman who can look a mother in the eyes and mean it when she says, thank you. We will never be what we once were. But I will not carry hate for you anymore. That's a burden I refuse to wear. Take care of yourself. Find your peace. But do it far from here. Eleanor Bennett. I sealed the envelope and mailed it the same day. No expectation. No need for a reply. I just needed to free myself of the final weight on my chest. Viewers, sometimes closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your release. You can't change them. But you can change how much of your power they get to keep. Have you ever written something you didn't send? Or sent something you were scared to? Just write, I let it go in the comments. I'll be reading them with gratitude. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support is how stories like mine find the ones who need them most. And now, finally, I'll tell you what happened on the anniversary of the day she moved in. Because that day became the beginning of something new. Something mine. Viewers, 1 year to the day after Aurora first stepped into my home, I stood in the exact same doorway. But everything had changed. This time, I wasn't welcoming manipulation. I wasn't bracing for betrayal. I wasn't hiding behind silence or folding under guilt. This time, I stood tall. It was quiet that morning. A soft breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine from the side yard. I wore my late husband's favorite shawl. Not for mourning, but as a reminder that love, real love, never leaves you, no matter who tries to bury it. Nathan joined me on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. No words were needed. We sat there for a long time, side by side, sipping in silence, not as mother and child burdened by pain, but as survivors finally awake. Later, I invited the women from the shelter to visit. They sat at my table. They laughed. They cried. They asked questions I had once been too scared to say out loud. And I shared it all not as a victim, but as a voice. I even started a monthly gathering. I called it the Porch Circle. Every month, women, mothers, widows, fighters came to tell their stories. Some were worse than mine. Some were quieter. But all were real. And each time a woman spoke her truth, something sacred happened. We got stronger. My home became more than a house. It became a refuge. Not for users. Not for liars. But for those of us who survived them. Viewers, if you're still with me after all chapters, I want to thank you. Deeply, from my soul. You have walked beside me through cruelty, gaslighting, loneliness, and grief. But also through healing, strength, and light. Let me know in the comments if this story helped you feel seen. Just write, I made it through. And if you're still on the journey, just say, I'm walking now. You're not alone. Not anymore. And please like this story, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to this channel. Because I'm not done telling the truth. And neither are you. This is my home now. My rules. My life. And for the first time in a long time, I'm proud to be living it.